clearly there's opportunities out there, and we just got to really, welcome it with open arms. And we got to constantly work on our skill set. And I think that one thing that starts with is mindset.
I'm here today with a great friend of mine, Justin Havre. Has been the number one real estate team in Canada for over 5 years. And we're just going to have a quick conversation about some of the things that are happening in the market, branding, leadership, and anything else that any curveballs that he wants to throw out there. So welcome, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just, I think one of the things that would be a huge benefit to everyone that has the opportunity to see this on our social media, on yours, is everyone is really starting to get a little uneasy about the economy, about the real estate industry across the world, with all the different things going on with inflation rates and all the other things that are happening in the world. And obviously you or I haven't been through this next shift, right? No one has. So, any crazy predictions that people are making, if they haven't been through it, are likely to be inaccurate. But you have a lot of experience in downturns in Calgary. And so if you could share just a little bit of your observations, things that happen along the way that I think could be really beneficial to a lot of agents that are probably a bit fearful right now.
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, operating in Calgary, Alberta, we are a market that thrive when energy prices are extremely high, which is clearly an environment that we're in right now. However, from 2015 to 2020, our real estate market was really, really suppressed because of the collapse in the energy prices. In 1 year alone, we had roughly $5 billion in annual salaries walk out of downtown office market where people lost their jobs. And you can only imagine the impact that had on the real estate market. So, really, for 5 years, we had a really suppressed market, driving the prices down. I actually stopped doing market updates because they were depressing. It was always negative numbers. And I'm like, why am I doing this? However, I believe that in a changing market, there's always opportunity. You just got to go for it, and you got to see the opportunity, because really, in a lot of instances, for people that are doing any sort of marketing, they typically will retract. And where we made the choice and a strategy of actually going all in and trying to take more market share. Clearly, the consumer's behavior is going to change just like it's changing today, which means that we also have to pivot our skill set and the methods that we use in order to serve our consumers. In a challenging market, we had at one point where many agents didn't even want to take on listings because they didn't think they would sell. So I think it's really important to welcome these changing markets, because the real estate market, in all reality, is always going to be changing. When the pandemic hit, we had to pivot, obviously, and who would have thought the market that we had would actually happen when the pandemic was first announced. So clearly there's opportunities out there, and we just got to really, welcome it with open arms. And we got to constantly work on our skill set. And I think that one thing that starts with is mindset, wanting to obviously enhance your skills so that you can serve the customer.
Yeah. One of the other things that I know we were talking about before we recorded this. By the way, we're in a studio right now where there's like cameras everywhere, and like we can turn the camera over. So it's just right on Justin here, over here.
Oh, I gotta hide now.
But one of the things that we talked about is all of the experience that you have on your team with agents and why they come to you. But also, I think one of the really important things is you've also sort of got a front row seat in watching the agents that have succeeded in the downturn in your market, on your team, other brokerages. Like, what activities are they doing as agents that have allowed them to stay successful even in a time where things aren't that good?
First and foremost, like I said, it starts with a mindset. And they welcome it. They actually start taking action. One of the things that we noticed that we had to do in a challenging market was over communicate with our clients, whether they're buyers or sellers. And, if you said we're going to touch base with them once a week, we would do it 2 or 3 times a week. Over communicate, over deliver, and making sure that, how the customer feels or the client feels. When you take a listing live, check in with them. How are you doing? How do you feel? And show a lot of empathy to the clients. And then it's following the sales process that we have laid out on how to, again, turn inventory over, or how to walk the buyers through the buying process. For many teams, like we run, we have a proven sales process, whether it's working with sellers or buyers. And if the agents follow that, they're going to get the results. And one of the things that I found that was critical in a downturn was, and what we saw experienced agents that were perhaps individual agents. They came onto our team because they wanted, one, stability, they wanted opportunities, but they also wanted to leverage a brand in the marketplace. And our brand was and is so strong in a marketplace where we had consumers reach out to us that were unable to sell their homes with other agents. And we have a policy on our team where we will not meet with a seller if they're actively listed with another client. We just simply will not step on another agent's toes. And we had one client that reached out to us and we said, "We're sorry, ma'am. We cannot meet with you because your listing is still active in the system." And she was adamant that we come over right now because her agent had told her to call us because he had been unsuccessful in trying to sell that property for a year. And he was at a loss of what to do. And he said, "Call Justin Havre Associates. I don't know what to do." So that is a testament to having a strong brand and a reputation in the marketplace to get the results. And I do also know that the consumers will seek out the brands in the marketplace that are known for delivering, because they may not necessarily have the opportunity to take the risk on someone that may not have the right marketing or perhaps the experience to get the results, because different market has different challenges. And the people that do a lot of business, they're obviously going to have the solutions to all the different scenarios that you'll come across.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think one of the things that I also that you mentioned there that I think is really important to highlight is that in a downturn, the customers, like that magnet effect, right? Going with the name in the market, going with the brand in the market. And we're already seeing that for us as well, as everything's starting to shift. Like the last couple of years required a different strategy than it does now. And things are getting really tough. And so with that, as things continue to change here, what have you seen along the way that really gets in the way of an agent, a real estate agent, as they're entering the industry? What gets in the way of them having success? What things have you seen?
Well, I think the one thing that really gets in the way at times, once an agent perhaps achieves a certain level of success, is their own ego. And that in itself can be obviously pretty dangerous. And I think it's very important to have some humility and not let the ego get in the way, because that can really be a career killer in many instances. And I've personally witnessed it. And I'm sure many of you guys may have seen that in the industry as well. And I think it's just making sure that, you stay humble and you always stay the student. No matter how many homes you have sold, there's always something for you to learn. And, we collaborate almost on a daily basis with, Gary and various other team leaders across North America. And we're simply students trying to learn and saying, "Oh, you know what, Chris, that's a great idea. I'm going to take that now to my team. And we're going to see if we can implement that into our sales process or marketing or whatever it is to enhance the agent experience, to enhance the consumer experience when they choose to work with our organization."
Yeah, there is, the collaboration and who you spend your time with. I think what you had said there about ego, and what I can speak from the experience that we've seen is that, the big brands, and like you had mentioned, Gary, and yours and ours, like the big brands where everyone in our markets knows who we are. We have made it look a little easy to get customers, right? And to have that process. And so, brand new agents come in and think that every single place and organization, because they don't have any experience elsewhere, they come in and it's, there's so many appointments. We refined this process over, a significant amount of time. Naturally, they come in 6-8 months later, they have a lot of business, like, oh, this all looks really easy. We can go jump and go on our own.
Oh, new agents that start in our organizations, they kind of get a false sense of reality when it comes to selling real estate. Because, yeah, you know what? We have tried, tested, and failed so many times to kind of fine tune the system that we have that works, the marketing techniques and all of that. And, when we have experienced agents, like on my team, I have agents that have 12, 15, 16, 19, 26 years experience. Some agents that have way more experience than myself. And they compare to that being an agent on a team like ours is the equivalent, like 1 year on our team is the equivalent of being an individual agent on your own for 7 years, because you get exposed to so many different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And, the collaboration of the whole, where we can solve problems, and we're like, hey, you know what? I had this scenario with this client, and we can then put the collective genius to work to try to find a solution, which, outside of a team environment, you don't necessarily have.
Mm-hmm.
And so being on a team, you get the equivalent of potentially 7 years of experience on your own in 1 year on a team. And we already have the sales process tested and proven. And if agents come onto a team and they go all in by following the sales process, and we can have it, dialed into step-by-step actionable steps that they have to take, and they get results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where you can have agents in their first year sell 40, 50, 60 homes, which can be over $40 million in production in their first year. I mean, we all know that's way above the industry average. But then you also get to some agents that come into our system and they'll be like, well, I'm going to try a different way.
Yeah.
And they don't achieve the success.
Right. They invent their own process instead of following the one that works.
They're trying to find the magic pill.
Yeah.
When the magic pill is follow the process.
Yeah. process.
I got hammered for that here yesterday at Chris's team. It's a Canadian way, or yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that I've seen over and over again. It's that they agents come in and they don't follow the plan that we've already proven to work, and we've seen it, thousands of times. This process works. And so what is it that, when someone comes in, and in general, and this isn't even specific to your team, things that you've observed around the world, like what is it that causes someone to come in, get excited about real estate, enter, and then not do the work and try to do something different?
I think they're trying to find the magic pill, or try to reinvent the wheel, when really they don't have to. And, if there's anything that we have proven by helping thousands of families each and every year, is that we have a sales process that works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, people are going to try to figure out, a hack or the magic pill to make it quicker and easier, because perhaps they want, again, we live in a world where everybody wants instant gratification.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things I would say that any agent or agents that were in the marketplace for the last 2-3 years, we all got trained by the consumer, because the consumer trained us that, hey, you know what? Shortage of inventory. They requested a showing. We grabbed that lead. We booked a showing, and we would write an offer. Like, really, it was not rocket science to sell a house. You just had to be quick to respond, get in the car as soon as possible, open a door, show them the house. Would you like to put an offer? Yes. Fill out the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you got it, because they had the winning offer. Now, I think that, we can say that the the consumer behavior has changed. There's less urgency in the marketplace. Now there's fear and doubt. Now it actually requires nurturing and empathy and really focusing on building that relationship over long term and allow the consumer to make the choice when they feel the time is right for them
Yeah.
by being their advisor through the process.
Yeah, it has. I mean, the market has completely changed. It doesn't mean that, well, all of a sudden we're on this free fall and like we're back to 08, 09 where some people are predicting. I mean, we're so far from that, but it is significantly different than it was. One thing that there's a word you mentioned, not long ago, and as we've been having a conversation here, and it was, the failing aspect. And I've seen this before in top leaders where there's this, sort of return on failing. Like, you keep going, you learn from it, and we call them learning opportunities. Like, what keeps you going when you don't get something right? Because some people, as you know, in not even just our industry and business, they're so afraid of failing that the minute that they do, they stop and shut down. How do you keep going?
Well, you just got to push through that wall of fear. I mean, I think everyone has a little bit of fear of failure in them, and you just got to allow that to be the driver. I mean, failure is not an option. You're going to try something. If it doesn't work, I mean, what did you learn from it? What worked? What didn't? And then you kind of retool and then take a new approach to try to find a solution to whatever the problem in the business may be, or in the marketing, or whatever you failed at. And, there's always a lesson in every failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important, as a business person, you just can't have option B, option A only, and you will just have to find a solution.
How do you, yeah, I mean, that's, so how do you stay as positive as you do with all of the things that go wrong and don't go right? Right. I mean, you mentioned mindset earlier, and there's so many things, not even just things that, in from your eyes, but your agents, clients, customers, brokers. I mean, how do you keep your mindset right? I think a lot of people that I've seen, and, when things go, drastically wrong, they lose their mindset.
Well, when I first got into the business here now 17 years ago, I remember signing up for, a sales course. And this coach, he had every time that we met, he's like, every morning, do a checkup from the neck up. And that has kind of stuck with me because, I mean, I believe that it is very important to have the right mindset. And you got to, I mean, again, we're all going to have curveballs, whether it's life or business. And if you allow that negativity to consume you, you're not going to go anywhere. Right. So I believe that it's critical for someone to have the right mindset to say, okay, what is this here to teach me? How can I solve the problem? And how do we move forward?
Yeah. The thing about that it's always stood out to me as I've watched that for you is that you always do move forward. And I've seen that all top performers stay in motion. As painful as it is, I mean, I've watched a lot of things that you've went through that are very painful, but you continue to show up, you continue to move forward. And I think one thing that also really stands out I think about this a lot is that you don't make any excuses, right? And you see a lot of agents that are in the industry that want to put blame all over the place.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, I mean, we're hearing it right now
Mm-hmm.
in the marketplace from agents like, oh, the market sucks. The leads are shitty, whatever. And I saw a Tony Robbins episode on YouTube here the other day. And, he said, life happens for you, not to you. And how does that resonate with the real estate industry when you look at the market? The market is not working against you like many people. Well, actually, if you allow it to work against you, it will. But it's how you approach it. You can look at this as now yet another opportunity for you to hone your skill set and pivot, because that is one of the things that, if you want to have longevity in any industry, you got to have the ability to pivot your messaging, your marketing, for example, your skill set, and you got to meet the consumer where they're at.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. And as long as you can obsess on the client experience, no matter what industry, whether it's real estate or mortgages or car sales or whatever, the consumers will always take care of you if you take care of them.
Yeah, I love that. Sort of that the learning opportunities. And I think what you just said there is like as you think about failing, like we miss all the time, but a good miss is like what you had said is the pivots, the adjustments, right? So when we're like, hey, we didn't quite hit the target, now we make adjustments, we learn from it, we keep moving forward. And what I mentioned before, a bad miss is totally like excuse orientated, like, hey, that's their fault. That would, it's constant finger pointing. So being that you've been through a lot of these downturns and you've been through a lot of shifts. I mean, Calgary's really dependent on oil, and a lot of that hasn't been great for the past several years. And so what a lot of this is going to look like. What should agents what should they be on the lookout for right now? Like what things should they be, as they look in the mirror at themselves, what things should they be really focused on and cautious not to fall into so that they avoid, you had a lot of agents that exited the industry in your area as things got super tough. And so trying to give advice to people that are going to enter that world, what things can they do right now to protect themselves so that they're not out of the business in the next 12 months?
Well, what I have witnessed over the years is that, we can really control our own destiny by taking action, creating the action economy. So no matter what the financial economy is doing, as long as you are relentless on your activities and you actually hold yourself accountable to your business, to your family, to your team, and to your clients, and you just roll up your sleeves and you know what? You do have to put in the extra hard work compared to earlier this year, which was, again, a different way of working hard. Mm-hmm. And you just got to focus on, again, nurturing and connecting with the people, whether it's in your database or the leads or however you're getting the business. You just got to do more. And if you do more, you're going to get luckier and you're going to get more sales. And that's really what it's all about. It's the action economy. We can't sit there and wait for our phone to ring. We can't sit there and wait for the economy to change, or we can probably wish for the interest rates to go down, but that's probably not going to happen in the foreseeable future. So what can you control? Focus on those things. And that, in my opinion, is, taking action, working on your skill set, nurturing the people in your database, and just being relentless about that. And you know what? People will always buy and sell real estate based on circumstances and needs. In a bad economy, high interest rates, low interest rates, there's going to be life that happens to people. And because of that, they're going to need to sell their house, or they're going to have to upgrade, downgrade, whatever it is. Make sure that you are that person when they're ready.
Yeah, that's spot on. We had the opportunity, Justin, shared with our company, and people loved it. I mean, all the comments on Facebook, you did an incredible job. There's two things that you mentioned yesterday from, spending time with our all company meeting and then our top agent mastermind. And you mentioned one of your agents that spends 2 hours a day in the database. And then you mentioned another agent that's been on don't quote me on, I think over 1,500 appointments, that still practices several times a week. Maybe for the, agents that are watching now, I think what you had mentioned there is working the database. One of the big things that happens in a market shift is people neglect the database, right? They just keep taking front end leads or appointments, and then they don't follow through or nurture or deliver for the customer. So maybe share a little bit about, you have some absolute superstars on your team, about what you've seen that's working.
Yeah, you know what? I think, looking at earlier this year, we were literally begging our agents to take new leads. So we kind of trained the expectation that new leads were always coming in. And you know what? They still are coming in, but clearly the urgency is not there anymore. So now it's more of that nurture aspect of it, which, what we're finding right now, not only on my team, but I believe across North America, where all the gold right now and all the opportunities are actually people that are already in your database. And I know of an agent that, spends a couple hours a day, mm-hmm. consistently, 5 days a week, calling that database of old opportunities that are sitting there and setting appointments on a daily basis. And, it also comes down to the practice. Like the top agent on our team, she's been on 1,500 listing appointments in the last 2 years. 1,500 listing appointments in the last 2 years. Okay. She still practices her listing presentation 3 times a week. Right. And that's because she cares about her craft and
Mhm.
her art. And she just wants to constantly be better. She's also one that's always engaged. If we have new coaching opportunities, new training, always giving back to the team as well, teaching the rest of the team on how to do certain things. So when you see a leader like that, that it not only inspires the newer agents on the team, the experienced agents on the team also learn from her and they learn from each other. It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty special to see. And I think that that's something that teams offer
Mhm.
agents because, you have a lot of individual agents out there that perhaps, we had a conversation with one here not that long ago. And he simply said, you know what? He's sick and tired of working from home alone at the kitchen table. He just
Mhm.
wants to be surrounded by other people that have that winning mindset and that are doing business.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of many things that a team can offer to someone.
Mhm.
And you want to talk about, being an agent in a changing market. It can be very scary. And it's also an opportunity for agents who have perhaps been solo agents. And we have many of these that have left being a solo agent for 7, 12, 16, 19 years, go on to a team because they see the value
Yeah.
that a team provides. It's not only getting the constant flow of opportunities, but it's leveraging the brand, the marketing materials. They don't have to worry about the social media and having to wear all the different
Yeah.
hats.
Not taking the risk,
Oh, and
right? In a downturn.
you know what? We all know that obviously there's a lot of risk to even taking on a listing in a
Mhm.
downturn.
Mhm.
Like we had at one point in my marketplace where less than 10% of listings would sell.
Yeah. And how long did it take to sell one?
Huh. Well, you had a 10% chance of selling that
Right.
listing.
Right. Yeah. 10% chance of selling it. But if you did sell one, it took a long time.
Several months.
Right.
Right. And if you want to do marketing at a high level, you got to hire that professional photographer, videographer. Now,
The
obviously,
customer acquisition cost. So generating the leads, the
yeah,
homeowners that are thinking about selling.
yeah. And as you guys all know, you only get compensated on that if you're successful at selling.
And then you don't get I think one of the things that most people don't understand is you actually don't get the money back until closing. So you've got 10% chance and you've got at minimum 3 or 4 months until it closes. And then if it doesn't close, you're out the money. And so in teams, right, the teams are assuming that risk. And I think it's a
Yeah.
big thing that people overlook.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things we're going to see here in the next little while is that we're actually going to see more experienced agents seek out teams.
For sure.
I've even heard of smaller teams joining larger teams because again they're looking at their expenses and they're looking at the cost of operating and they don't have perhaps much saved up to go through a challenging market.
Yeah. Yeah, there's significant resources required to take that type of risk, as you know. What's so fascinating is we've been talking about this and watching it. The agents that got in the industry a couple of years ago and joined a team are some of them are leaving teams right now to go start their own brands and take that risk, even with all of the uncertainty in the market. But what's fascinating is what you just said. A lot of the experienced agents that have been through these downturns are now going to teams because they don't want to take the risk. I think you asked that at the meeting, like, how many people got in the industry a couple of years ago? And I'm seeing this right now that there's agents and agents trying to start teams right now where the market is changing so fast and people are taking on way more risk than they even know that they're taking on right now. And you're going to see just a huge shift in how this all works not long from now.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see and probably pretty predictable as well. In the last few years, a lot of newer agents, even if they weren't on teams, they probably had a lot longer staying power than previous markets because, it really didn't take a lot to sell a house. Now there's going to be a lot of agents that are going to have some challenges and there's probably going to be a pretty big drop off of agents leaving the industry as well. During normal times, 87% of agents leave the business within the first 5 years. And you got to ask yourself, why is that? It's because one, they probably don't have the leads. And I know that when I got into the business, one of the things that, I heard was exactly that. In order to survive, you need to have leads. And I went all in on generating leads from day one. And I still continue to do that to this day. And then you got to have systems and processes
Yeah.
that work so you can convert those opportunities into sales. Then you got to have, a support network. You got to have a brand.
Mhm.
And in a challenging market, brands transfer trust. Also in a good market, but that is again one of the benefits of agents when they can walk into a listing appointment and they're like, I don't need to see your listing presentation. I'm already signing the papers with you.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily get that often from a unknown
Mm-mm.
person that just called into the company to sell their house if you weren't on the team.
Yeah, it's I think you're spot on there. And as I look at all of the agents and I look at, the early days of my career, if I could have found someone to associate with that was a team leader where I could have elevated up faster, I would have done it. But back then, in the early days when we got started, there was no teams and it was a new concept. I think people are really overlooking the learning aspect of figuring out how to be successful in real estate a lot faster. The value of time, right, is what most people aren't putting an emphasis on, right? And so if you can go into a team where the process is proven out, the team is taking the risk, the appointments are coming in, they're delivering a world-class experience for the customer, and you can do it 2 years faster than you would on your own, why wouldn't you do it? But why do people still go out and try to do it on their own, even though there's a brand in the market that they could step into right now and have massive success tomorrow? What holds them back, and why do they still want to do it on their own?
Ego. It's
Mhm.
ego. I mean, you know what? You can't fault people for wanting to try to build something
Of course.
on their own.
Yeah, of course.
It's inspirational. It's awesome. I mean, if that is something that you inspire to do, and I'll say this, there are a lot of people that also think that in order to have success, they need to have a team.
Mhm.
And I've been approached by so many people that want to know how to build a team, how do they grow. And what fascinates me sometimes is how little experience they have in the business before they want to build a team. I had one instance where the guy had been in the business for less than 6 months, sold 2 houses, but he wanted to build a team.
Mm.
And I'm like, dude, you got to focus on your own business.
Yeah.
You got to have enough. In my opinion, if you're going to build a team, you got to have enough business to support yourself and your family. And you got to have that overflow of business to support another agent.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just buying leads and trying to mark them up for agents.
And then you got to mentor them.
Yes.
Making sure that they take really good care of the clients, because again, if you are now having someone to work under you, your name's at stake.
Mhm.
If they make a mistake, it is your reputation that's on the line as well. And for individual agents, and I mean, there are many that do exceptionally well out there, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. And I've even talked to individual agents that, sell a lot of homes, close to 3-figure homes a year,
Mhm.
but they only net about 30%.
Right.
So for an agent to come onto a team, one, you have no risk. You have no cost of acquisition. You follow a proven process, and you can have a lot of success. And the money that you make is essentially your net.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah, your gross is your net on a team. Whereas in the, other if you're on your own, your gross is substantially different than your net. But I mean, most agents that I've met with that are first getting into the industry, anyone that I've ever met in any brokerage that I've ever seen, I don't think a lot of people get into real estate having a lot of business experience on, creating, understanding, and reading a P&L, and also, being able to assess the what their time is worth too, right? So that's one thing that none of the brokerages will ever show in a P&L. I always ask that question at sample P&L is, as recruiters call agents and try to attract them, they show them this P&L, which is a total misleading thing because the gross number isn't what they net, like you had mentioned, but they never put a line item on there for time. And not only time that they have to sacrifice now, but the time it takes to learn the proven process to get to a point where they've got it figured out and they can scale.
Oh yeah. And, like we have a pretty extensive training program on our team. We haven't have it to the point where there are brokerages in our marketplace that tell new agents to join our team for the best training in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we even put experienced agents through that, and they will go through that program. And obviously, depending on their time commitment into the program, it will take them a good 2 months to go through that training
Mm-hmm.
before we let them go out into, into our system and work with our clients. Now, even experienced agents will go through that. And it's like, you know what? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I learned something new. And I think that's a very powerful thing to consider when you're joining a team, because you're learning a different skill set. Like, I mean, anybody can really get their license and take that. And then you're like, it's the Wild West.
For sure.
Right. And many agents will practice on their clients.
Yeah.
And how scary is that when you have people making their biggest financial purchase and there are people out there that are just winging it?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of scary. And again, you got to put yourself in the consumer shoes.
Mm-hmm.
How would they feel
mm-hmm.
if they knew that you were just, oh, I saw this, I'm going to try this?
Yeah, I think that's what you just said there, I think is the most underused thing in real estate. And that is, whether it's a brokerage, agent, team leader, is putting your shoes in the customers, right? And putting your feet in that situation where all of a sudden, like, hey, now you've got the customer shoes on. It's a completely different way to look at things. And I've seen even like agents that are thinking about a part-time career in real estate and they want to keep their side hustles and their other gig economy jobs. And you think about it like, gosh, if they were the customer, I don't think they'd want a part-time agent. It's amazing to me how many people still aren't fully committed, even though they feel like it's the only thing that they're doing.
You know, the unfortunate thing is that the entry fee into real estate is so low.
Mm-hmm.
Or the entry bar, I should say. It's so low. I sure wish that it was higher myself, because I think that, there are so many agents out there that provide that exceptional professional service, but there are also some that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just unfortunate. And clearly, you have that in many different industries. But the bar to get into this industry is too low, in my opinion. And I think they need to raise it. And that's, again, where teams kind of really come in with the training programs that we have. Mm-hmm. We're trying to, build a solid foundation for an agent to have a long career. And I compare it much to like building a house.
Yep.
You want to have that solid foundation for a house so the house doesn't fall apart. It's the same thing for their career.
For sure.
And that is one of the many benefits that a new agent that starts on a team will have. Now, the experienced agents that come onto a team, they got to have a bit of an open mind. They got to be coachable.
Yeah.
They got to not let their ego get in the way as well. It's like, oh, I know how to do this. I've done this for so many years. Well, do they know the Lindahl way?
Right.
Do they know the Havre way?
Yep.
Right. And when you follow the process, there's so much success. Like, it is fun to watch.
I know.
It's so much fun to watch, newer agents coming in and they just buy into everything that we're doing and
follow it.
And then the success that they have.
It's amazing.
It's heartwarming.
I know it is. Yeah. So, whether you're watching this or listening to this, please leave feedback, reviews or comments for Justin, donating his time, being willing to share. There's a massive amount of gold nuggets here that we got from. Do you have any final thoughts for anyone in the industry that you want to give before we sign off here?
I think if anything, there's, again, like we talked about, a lot of fear in the marketplace right now, not only from the consumers, but also from the agents. Don't let the market dictate your business. Look at the opportunities, whether your opportunity is to perhaps look at joining a team because you may not necessarily have the risk tolerance for what is to come or what may come. Again, nobody has that crystal ball, but being also a part of something is also what's fulfilling for people.
Well, real estate's lonely when you're on your own.
Yeah.
Really lonely. So being a part of something, especially when things are uneasy and there's a downturn.
Yeah. And then the collaboration of the whole. And you know what? You can go a certain distance alone, but you can go further together.
Yeah.
And, in challenging markets, welcome it with open arms. Just change that mindset around it.
Well, thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. Yep. Thanks, everyone.